And with it being the last day of the DNC, we want to bring in live from Chicago, Pennsylvania's Lieutenant Governor Austin Davis. Great to talk to you again. And what a week it's been for you.
Oh, great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you had a front row seat to watch your partner, Governor Josh Shapiro, give that primetime speech last night. And his remarks, like we've been talking about, it's getting a lot of buzz, even to what's being described as anti-Semitic comments from former President Donald Trump. What was your reaction to Trump's post?
You know, it's the latest in a long line of racist and anti-Semitic comments that the former president has made. Quite frankly, he's a clown, and we shouldn't take him seriously. And I think he's proven time and time again he's unfit to serve as our president. And I think we're going to continue to work to make sure that we defeat him in November. I'm proud to be Josh Shapiro's lieutenant governor and his governing partner. And I think we are all blessed in Pennsylvania to have such a strong leader leading us.
So Lieutenant Governor WGAL spoke with Democratic voters yesterday, and look, it was a mixed bag. Some are not on board with the Harris-Walz ticket. One saying they're not on board with either presidential candidate, will not vote. Another telling us the economy is playing a big factor in his vote. He's going to vote Republican because he says the economy is not getting any better. What's your reaction to that feedback from Democratic voters?
Well, look, we still have a lot of campaign left to get out there and to organize and to talk to voters and to share the vision that Kamala Harris has for our country. But I will note, President Clinton spoke last night at the DNC, and he provided an interesting statistic that since 1989, there have been 51 million jobs created in America. Under all of those presidents, Democrats created 50 million of those jobs. Republicans created one. So, I think we're going to spend a lot of time talking about Vice President Harris's economic record. And look, we've seen what former President Trump did to our economy. He let a pandemic rage out of control. He brought the economy to its knees, closed small businesses during that time period. I think we've seen what Donald Trump will do to our economy, and I don't think many folks want to go back to that.
I do want to dig into this more because this month's Franklin Marshall College poll shows the economy is the most mentioned problem in the state. Voters are pointing to unemployment, higher gas, utility prices. Half the people in that poll say they're worse off than a year ago. So are Democrats on the right path to create a strong economy, and are they addressing this issue enough this week on the main stage?
So this week, I know Vice President Harris rolled out her economic plan last week. We know that the economy is a #1 issue for folks out there who are feeling that pinch. She laid out the beginnings of our economic plan. Tonight, I'm sure she's going to talk about the work she's done throughout her entire career to fight for working class families, from being a prosecutor, taking on wage theft cases to make sure that employers weren't taken advantage of, to a United States Senator defending real freedom. We still have some time left in this campaign. Polls are going to go up and they're going to go down. The only poll that really matters is what's going to happen on Election Day on November 5th. And I believe at the end of the day, people are going to recognize that the contrast in this race is clear, and ultimately Kamala Harris will be elected as our next president.
So, Lieutenant Governor, thousands of protesters, including many from different faiths, have been demonstrating outside the DNC in support of Palestine. One rabbi says Democrats are not speaking out about the war in Gaza, claiming the word Palestine isn't allowed inside the DNC and that there's been barely a mention of a ceasefire. From your conversations with Vice President Kamala Harris, what's the plan for the conflict in Gaza?
So, I really can't speak to that. As lieutenant governor, I don't have a role in terms of foreign policy. But what I will say is that at every convention, Democrat and Republican, there are always Americans who are standing up in protest and voicing their opinion and their concerns about various issues. Folks here at the DNC have had the opportunity. We've protected their fundamental rights to exercise their First Amendment free speech, and we're going to continue to do that.
And tonight's a big finale. What does the vice president need to do in her speech? Does she need to start clarifying positions on issues and explain whether or not they've changed?
I think the vice president should talk about her background, her story, talk about her lived experience, and talk about the values that lead her each and every day. This is going to be an opportunity for her to introduce herself to voters as the Democratic nominee for president. She should talk about the issues that are concerning everyday Americans, and I think she's going to do that. And I think folks are going to walk away recognizing that Kamala Harris is the candidate of hope and the future, and she's the candidate that's going to bring people together and not divide Americans.
And last question, Pennsylvania, as we all know, could be the deciding factor of who wins this election. So when you come home, what's the game plan for Pennsylvania Democrats on getting people out to vote?
Yeah, so we're going to continue to crisscross the Commonwealth, going not just to big cities like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, but everywhere in between, talking about Kamala Harris's vision for our country. And, since she's ascended to the top of the ticket, we've had 40,000 new people register to volunteer with the Democratic Party to support her campaign. I'm confident in the ground game that Democrats have in Pennsylvania. We're going to continue to own the ground, continue to knock on doors, and continue to mobilize and organize people to win this election.
Pennsylvania's Lieutenant Governor Austin Davis, thank you so much for being here for your time.
Thank you for having me. Great to be with you again.